Thank you for joining the Revenue Optimists. We're a space where go-to-market leaders and revenue operation folks can come together to learn from one another in order to grow their businesses. My name is Dave Nelson, and today I'm very fortunate to be joined by two experts in the Salesforce arena. Mike Bogan, who is the co-founder and director of product strategy at Hubbl and has over 10 years experience at a major Salesforce consulting business, and Rob Acker, with over 24 years experience at Salesforce, building out some of the largest sales teams, was the COO at data.com and then the CEO at salesforce.org. So Mike and Rob, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Hey, David.
Mike, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself? And then I'll pass over to Rob.
Yeah, for sure. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking some time today to listen to us. So Mike Bogan here. So I've spent about over 11 years now inside the Salesforce ecosystem. And like Dave said, joined a consulting partner, Traction on Demand, when we were about 20 people and helped scale out that organization. Dave and I met at Traction on Demand in those days. Had a lot of fun scaling out that organization from about 20 people up to about 1,500. Prior to this whole journey through the Salesforce ecosystem, I spent about 10 years inside the US Department of Energy. And so I was working at Lawrence Livermore National Lab and at Stanford University at the SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory. And so 20 years ago, we were doing projects that were involving neural networks, machine learning, and clustering algorithms that were allowing us to do experiments that were of national security importance, that allowed us to leverage technology that you're seeing at the forefront now. And we're seeing a lot of discussion and excitement around what's happening with AI and machine learning and how businesses can leverage this. And a lot of that core thinking is what we're bringing into Hubbl Diagnostics to accelerate our business.
Well, thank you very much for joining, Mike. Now, Rob, you spent 24 years at Salesforce. Do you want to give us a little bit more background on your journey there?
Yeah, sure. So, 24 years at Salesforce. I came in, we were in a parking garage of a building. I was the first sales leader they hired. Over that time, built multiple BUs, ranging from SMB, account management, commercial sales, Europe. Then, as you mentioned, COO of data.com, and then CEO of .org, where we took that from about 8 to about $1 billion. But I actually became introduced to Complete in your team doing data.com. So it's been quite a journey. And one thing I could say is that I was always data obsessed. Numbers, whether it was pipeline, forecast, trends, buyers, personas, products, regions, looking at investment, where we should invest and spend time with. Good quality data was what all of our decisions at Salesforce was really based on.
Mike, maybe you could give a little bit more background for folks that might not be as familiar with the term metadata on what that entails, particularly maybe in the Salesforce ecosystem, and what they should be aware of.
Yeah, for sure. So one way to think about this, the concept of data versus metadata, and then the AI running on it. So we're all familiar with the concept of the data in the system. So it's like the first name, the last, and the actual values of who a particular contact is, for example. And maybe you're working an opportunity with that particular contact. The metadata is think about it as the way that data is actually architected, what describes what that data is. So if you looked at the contact record, the metadata is the field, the first name field, for example, and the last name. That's just like a really simple way to think about it. A field is the metadata itself, and all the values that describe that. But then what happens is there's automation that runs underneath. So when you go in and you have your salespeople going in and they're entering some information into Salesforce and they're putting some data into a record, and they click save. When they click save, there's some automation running underneath, and that automation is also defined in the Salesforce ecosystem as metadata that's running underneath and actually automating the system itself as well.
Metadata quality is as important as data quality. And in order to have great data quality, you're going to have great metadata information. And, as you were talking about earlier, like everybody is trying to tackle and have an AI strategy. It's the latest view on having a competitive advantage. You know, McKinsey did a survey, 75% of CEOs believe that the competitive advantage will depend on who has the most advanced generative AI strategy. The problem is garbage in, garbage out. AI is only as good as what you have in there. So, you know, when you look at a lot of CEOs, I was talking to a CEO recently, he said every one of our competitors and most of the organizations our size have spent at least a few $1 million on failed AI initiatives. And the answer why was because promises of AI vendors don't pay off unless the company's data systems are properly prepared for. And that's what metadata can really help accomplish, because what people fail to realize is bad data is usually a result of several symptoms. There's things that we can learn from metadata that can heal your data quality, can reduce tech debt, security issues, monitor your process, field utilization, all of these different components. And the ability to have a quick insight into that will ultimately comes back to, you know, back to a question you asked me earlier, like creating the ultimate self-healing application that makes your data ready, but also makes you innovation ready by looking at your metadata is really the answer, I think, that is going to accelerate innovation, starting with AI, but it could be data cloud, could be any level of innovation you're looking to take on.
So we think about this from, you know, some concrete examples of where the metadata can actually lead to these data problems. So you can imagine having, like, going back to that view of looking at a record at Salesforce, if for some reason the team has built, you know, multiple fields with the same labels on them that are sitting on a page that someone's viewing, so some people are entering in one place, some people are entering somewhere else, you end up with a data problem. So that's a really
opportunity amount comes to mind.
Yeah, right.
Everyone
like
has
custom
too many
opportunity amount fields. Yeah, exactly. So this challenge is there. The other challenge, of course, would be just going back to the data itself is just duplicate records that are representing the people that you're actually selling to, right? We're selling to humans. We need to represent a single version of that human and engage with them. So that can be a challenge as well. But another example is, like I said, when you're saving that record and there's automation running underneath, sometimes that automation can cause data quality issues just because there's some issues in that code itself. And so from an AI readiness perspective, you want to make sure that all the code underlying the org, as well as the data quality itself, are all in line so that you can take best advantage of AI in the future. So if we're thinking about a checklist of the different pieces of metadata that you want to make sure you're taking a look at getting ready in terms of AI, I mean, it goes on and on. Like I said, there's on average 24,000 different pieces of metadata that are in there. It's everything from those fields that we talked about from a field utilization perspective. If those fields aren't being filled in, then that model you're training on is not going to be training on the best data in your system. And that's a challenge because you're not actually going to be getting quality results from there. But it goes across everything from the security perspective, those SQL injection issues, you want to clean that out. You want to get rid of inactive automations, the concept of global pick list values. This is a really simple one, getting into the technical weeds inside of Salesforce. If you have pick lists that have different values in them that are informing an AI model, and you have the opportunity to manage them with a global pick list that makes sure that all of those values are in a consistent set of values, this is going to help drive better quality outcomes from your AI.
I'd add a few more on the data side. Obviously, you guys talked about clean data, fully enriched information in those fields that are empty, like Mike talked about, that are training a model because the field isn't filled in is going to have an impact. And so you want to make sure it's completed. You want to make sure that it's deduplicated. You want to make sure that as many records are linked together appropriately as possible, because that's also going to give insights to artificial intelligence for future predictions, right? The more connections that have been made, the more likely it is to convert, to close, etc.
The average Salesforce org has 24,000 different pieces of metadata in it. And so one way to think about this is if you're manually going to get ready for AI, you need to go in and look at those pieces of metadata and get an understanding of whether they're in a high quality state. And if you just thinking about that, now 24,000 is kind of a big number, right? It's kind of like this eyebrow raising number. But if you translate that into what it would actually take if you went into Salesforce and actually looked at every one of those and you clicked on it and looked at it for 5 seconds, it would take you 4 straight days of just clicking and looking at stuff for 5 seconds to just even see the metadata. That's not even doing any analysis, any sort of getting understanding of whether it's quality or not. It's just literally just looking at it. And so what it means is that people are struggling with trying to figure out, how do I tackle this? I want to be ready for AI. I want to be using AI right now, but I know that there's some issues inside my org. Maybe, like you mentioned, there's that old workflow and process builder, which were amazing innovations for Salesforce at the time, but now my org is getting a little bit stale. I need to figure out how to migrate this into the newer technologies. And so this is where the work that we're doing at Hubbl Diagnostics comes in, because we've built a platform that is used by Salesforce customers, Salesforce partners, even Salesforce themselves to drive their customers' success on the Salesforce platform. And it's a machine learning platform that provides holistic Salesforce org monitoring and optimization. So it's looking across all of those different pieces of the puzzle, everything from looking at not only the metadata itself and how it's being adopted inside of the organization, but it's also providing a way to use the machine learning to provide recommendations and a roadmap to getting to success. Another really critical piece here that we haven't even really touched on yet is that custom code, that metadata that's inside of the org that's automating your RevOps process. There can even be security issues inside of there as well that you want to make sure that you have cleaned out prior to running AI against that as well. And so that's, I think the key theme here is that there's so much going on. We're moving our entire business into the cloud, right? There's so much going on inside of that Salesforce org that we need to find ways to automate this to get us to AI readiness even faster.
Just doubling down on what Mike said, if you really think about the pulling together all of the information that you need to see at the metadata layer would take weeks, maybe even months. And then just to take it out and look at it and interpret it. What we're doing is we're the industry's first organization that actually is taking and consolidating and giving you a view into every single component of that metadata layer with intelligent recommendations, actionable recommendations about what to solve first, second, third by level of severity and level of effort, and being able to organize that. And when I said earlier in the call, like self-healing application, that as you kind of get things under control, you can all of a sudden start running. You're always going to be innovation ready. And as new things come up, it will point you to those things. So whether it's, on the security issues like bad SQL code that makes you vulnerable to security issues, or whether it's, fuel utilization, all of these different things, it's instantaneous. It comes to you, it's delivered in a way that you can interpret. It does the interpretation for you, and it's built on Salesforce, well architected, and it makes the recommendations that are necessary. So it saves you a lot of time just as you dive in, but also on an ongoing basis, it will save you the headache of constantly having to kind of either re-implement or clean up your system every couple of years for all the reasons that make you not ready to take on new innovation. And that's what we want to do, is we want to make every customer innovation ready.
Well, Mike and Rob, thank you. This is fantastic. I love the checklist, and I am incredibly impressed with what you guys have built at Hubbl. For anyone on the phone, check it out at hubbl.com. Download or run the free scan. Check out your org in 2.5 minutes. You will see those 24,000 pieces of metadata that Mike talked about, all of the triggers, a custom code, et cetera, that could be potentially causing issues in your org, as well as automatic recommendations on how to fix it. So thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.